What's going on, YouTube family? Back from the dead. It's been a while, man. How's it going, traders? How y'all doing? Um, Man, so what's today? Today is Monday, December 12th, 11:09. It's gonna be an interesting week. We got a lot going on. Of course, end of year trading. So that's always interesting, always fun, always gonna keep you on your toes, right? So a lot of couple key topics we're gonna talk about today. First thing we're gonna get into though is we're gonna get into Forex Factory. We're gonna find out what news we got coming out, how this fundamental news has an implication on our trading, on markets, and we're just gonna try to pretty much get a gauge on where we feel like price is gonna go based off technical price action and fundamental analysis and market sentiment, right? So we're gonna dive right into that here. Um, First thing we're going to take a look at, like I said, is Forex Factory. We're just going to look at what impacting news events that we have. So for me, predominantly, I do trade GU, GJ, indices, and the US dollar is like my baby. So the main thing I focus on when it comes to going into Forex Factory is the main folders or pairs or currencies going to be the Great Britain pound, the euro, and the US dollar. All right, so those are my top three that I'm really paying attention to right now. Everything else, I kind of get a gauge for through price action and just through my typical news analysis. So we see we already had the GDP folder come out for Great Britain pound. GDP is doing pretty good, up 0.5%. Comes Tuesday, we have this claimant count change. Not really something I look at too much. Now here's what we really want to get into, right? Or the folders that I really think are going to have the biggest implication on trading. So first, Bank of England, Governor Bailey speaks. So always interesting to see what these higher level politicians have to say. And a lot of times what they say in these meetings and these press conferences does have that overlaying effect on markets because, of course, since they're higher up, a lot of people are looking at these press conferences, at these reports, to gain further information on how they will proceed over the next 365 days or the next quarter or two, right? Or just see where the economy is going over the next 365 days, the next quarter, whatever their time frame range seems to be on that. So the next thing we're going to have is CPI, right? So the Consumer Price Index, we've got that coming out Tuesday morning, early Tuesday morning. This isn't even in the right time. 1 second. All right, boom, boom, boom. Got to make sure these times is right, you know? That's important. But we got CPI coming out. Why do I feel like... All right, we're not lagging. So we got CPI coming out on Tuesday morning, 7:30. So about an hour before markets open. And we did have PPI come out last week. PPI was higher than forecasted, right? So it's kind of giving us the implication that inflation is still running rampant, right? Inflation, although we have seen kind of a slow and pace in inflation, inflation is still pacing forward, right? So we're still not in that kind of clear or kind of in that space quite yet where we can kind of take a breather. And that's kind of what the Federal Reserve right now is navigating. Jerome Powell, he's navigating this kind of a gray zone where, okay, we see that these rate hikes are having an implication on inflation, but they're not doing it in a way that we thought they would, and inflation is still running higher than we thought it would at this time, right? So that's the main situation they're trying to tackle, is how can they tackle inflation and not totally spin the U.S. economy into a recession, because as you know, you tackle inflation by raising interest rates, and the raising of these interest rates rolls over to the day in, day out consumer, because now that banks are charging more to exchange money between each other, loans are higher, cost of services also trickle down through this, and you see the prices of things kind of increase, right? And what this does is it kind of takes some of that extra money out of the economy, allowing for prices to balance themselves out a little bit more. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the Fed actually navigates this issue in 2023. Because like I said, right now, inflation is still running hot, right? So they've been trying to tackle inflation this whole year. We started rate hikes, I believe, in April, somewhere first quarter. We started rate hikes in the first quarter of the year, and we are still running very rampant. Prices are still running very high, and we can actually take a look at that briefly. Let's actually do that. Here. So I love using this trading economics little gauge here, kind of forecast. So we look this current core inflation rate. So we see we kind of tapered off a bit, but we're still above 6, right? We look at the consumer price index. We see we're still constantly, increasing in that aspect. We look at food inflation. We see food inflation has started to decrease just slightly, but we're still very high when it comes to our food. Energy has tapered off a lot, so that's kind of good. And then we see, if we look at producer prices, which we know is higher, we see producers are still kind of balancing in that higher end range of charging for their things. So we have a lot of things to really take into consideration. So CPI, I do believe this is going to come out above estimate, which is going to have a bit of a negative impact on markets. I do believe things like the U.S. dollar will probably increase in value. But as we know, the U.S. dollar and indices typically have an inverse relationship. So I believe this push in the U.S. dollar will push up bonds, of course, but it will push the stock market indices, SPF 500, NASDAQ 100, US 30, Dow Jones, Russell. I do believe it will start to push some of those overlyings down. We'll take a look at that a little bit as we get into the charts. So that's Tuesday, right? We have the CPI, core inflation, all that coming out in US dollar. Wednesday morning, during London session, we also have CPI for Great Britain pound, so that'll be very interesting. We already see that CPI is very, very high, right? 10.9. So let's see what our current year-over-year is, 7.3, right? So we see there's a gap in our inflation compared to other countries. So but here's federal funds rate, comes out Wednesday. A lot of the market has already priced in about a 50 basis point hike, which is a lower hike than the Federal Reserve has been going with. Typically, they've been going with a 0.75% or 0.75 basis point hike through this year. They are deciding to kind of taper that back a little bit in the year on a 50 basis point hike and see the effects, of how that rolls over. And I'm not sure when the next meeting is. Next release February 1st. Okay, so that'll take us through January. So we'll get to see a little bit of implications that has on January markets in February. But it looks like they may already be pricing another rate hike before we even get to see if there was any effects of that 50 basis hike. But hey, we're going to roll with the punches as we've been rolling with it. Like we all know, if you've been any type of trader, investor, or even just a speculator in the market, you've seen market has had some wild turns. We have some very strong bullish runs. We've had very strong bearish runs. Of course, overall market is extremely bearish, right? Let's not kind of contradict that statement right now. We are very aware that overall market sentiment is very bearish, right? It's been bearish. The rest of this week kind of plays out as very key fundamental. Last week was pretty much no news at all. We see this news this week is heavy in red folders, right? So let's just take a look at Thursday. We got some for the Swiss. Don't really pay too much attention to that GDP. Okay, so they got their official bank votes Thursday morning. Monetary policy and their official bank rate comes out Thursday morning. So that's going to have some implications on pairs like GJ, GU, any Great Britain pairs, GE, or EG. I don't know. I only trade GU and GJ. I think GA. GA is a good one. So that probably has some good movement there. We see at about an hour before market opens, we have core retail sales comes out, Empire State Manufacturing, um, a yellow or an orange unemployment claims folder. So that it'll be very interesting to see these implications and see what kind of effects these potentially have on market open. Just depending on how these news articles come out. And besides that, we got some more GDP news on Friday. Flash services, flash manufacturing. But really, the main things we're going to be looking at, or I'm looking at, is the U.S. dollar. So let's just take a look at the U.S. dollar, actually, since we're talking about it so much. Excuse me. So let's just take a look at the weekly. First thing we'll do really quickly is that's why I was doing that. Okay, we're just gonna clear away all our drawings really quickly. Just so that we can see, right? 2022, we've been very not really sure what this line is. Been very bullish. Do want to? I've been playing around. It's been a while since I've actually done it, but I've actually been playing around with the EMAs. Just the 50 and the 200 EMA. Slowly, I guess, or building a strategy around that. Not really a strategy that isn't already built. It's a 250 EMA. It's like the one strategy that everyone kind of hears about. Trading. I like to make my 200 yellow. I don't know why that actually used to show more, but now it's all like reserved. But let's take a look here. So we see prices kind of like sitting right above our 50 EMA. Pretty sure, yeah, our 50 EMA. We have been seeing some very bearish candles. We are seeing a little bit of reduction in flow, so that's something we'll take a look at, or some just keep in mind that we see on a weekly. We take a look at our daily. I'll just go ahead and bring back the technicals, right? Really quick, bring back the technicals on a weekly just to show something. That was just week start, so okay, and this doesn't want to leave, so that's the thing. All right, there we go. So we take a look at DXY, right? Just want to get an overview of kind of our major zones. So currently, we have this 90.500 support level, this 103 support level. As you can see, we've had, even if you look previously past this area, right? You're seeing the confluence in this zone, but just taking it back. You don't want to take price action back too far, but just taking it back from the recent peaks, we see this is acted as a major zone between this 102 103 area, right? We see this act as a major zone of previously resistance. We see we had a break above this zone, retest, and we kind of just been trading above it ever since, kind of creating smaller levels of higher highs, higher lows along this way, right? So we see once we got a break above, create another higher high, higher low, kind of right on the neck of this previous higher high. And we've kind of been doing that, or we did that for a little bit, and then around the, let's see, mid-September is when we kind of seen like a consolidation phase, and around October we really start to see price decline a bit, and it's been on this decline for the last month or so, last month or two, so taking that into consideration. But if we break it down to the daily, things start to look a little bit more clear, right? So this is that break in price above our previous resistance zone, our 102 resistance zone. So we saw that break, saw that retest. We also see the retest tested and sat right above our 50 EMA, kind of giving us a confirmation that price is still bullish, right? So typically if you're seeing price still above your lines, you still have that bullish sentiment on price. So just taking a look at this, right? So we seeing boom, higher high, higher low, create another higher high near this previous higher high, a small mini higher low, before we create another higher high at around this 108 level. So once we got to 108, we kind of took things from a different perspective, right? So we kind of hesitated at this 108 zone for just a little bit before we moved up higher again. Before we started seeing like, okay, we're no longer creating higher highs, right? We saw at this point in price here, we no longer were creating higher highs. We were now creating like a higher low, and then lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, right? So we're seeing that downtrend. We saw the break below the 50 EMA, right, giving us a little bit of a bearish signal, bearish confirmation for the time being. And we also see prices just falling back into around this 104 support area and this 104 500 support area, and that's going to be a little bit more clear on a 4 hour, right? So we take a look at the 4 hour at this price, right? So we see we had, and me personally, in my trading, I use a lot of quarter point levels and whole number levels. So most of my zones are always going to be at a whole number like 108, or going to be a quarter point levels like 108 500, 108 250, 7. You know, you get the gist. So we have that. We look at trading over the last about week, right? We see we were bearish, not extremely bearish, but bearish nonetheless. We saw price kind of rally back into this area here, create another area of resistance, and I actually found this level per a fib. So, well, outside of the fib, we see this is just a level of confluence, right? We see prices really having a lot of action here. And if we just take, look, we're still under, now we're under both our 250 EMA, just letting us know that our overall right now is bearish. So let's just dig a little deeper. And I like to stick to about the 4 hour when marking up daily, 4 hour, weekly. Once I start trying to get into execution, that's more so when I'm looking at the 1 hour, 30 minute. So let's just take a look into a few things here. We can really, I think I want to erase this zone. I don't really need this zone anymore. Kind of two things. Since I am expecting CPI to be bullish, so I'm kind of expecting US dollar to be bullish, so actually I am going to bring back that zone. Just because I want to see if we do rally up to this point. This price point again, this price structure zone. As we see, we've rallied to it a few times. But let's just talk about the end of last week here. Let's clear this. So at the end of last week, let's see what was price doing last week. So today is the 12th. Let's just mark this off really quick. So price, okay, so price opened up here, and price would have opened up on the 4th. Boom. All right, so this is last week's trading. Boom. All right, and this is this week's. So let's just take a look at what happened in the market last week. Is terms in terms of DXY, right? Zoom out to the 4 hour, reset our chart, get a better view. So we see price was, of course, still bullish, made its way down to this 104 zone, right? That we see was kind of set by this previous higher low of the uptrend, right? So you want to always look at previous market movement and previous market structures to see where that structure may be headed forward, right? So we just take a look at the higher highs, higher lows of the previous uptrend. We were able to see where our potential stoppage points or reversal points or, hesitation points on that downtrend may be. So we see this 104 level was a strong level of support for this. We also see that price came down to retest this level. All right, so looking at the day or 4 hour, we see, okay, price was bearish the previous. Oh, don't move that. The previous week, before last week, you see price came into this 104 area, rallied up to about the 105 700. I would say the key rally was route 105 300. What we see, or what I see, if we take it over here, we see a head and shoulders pattern, right? So we got the left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and then we have the fallout of price. What I think this is kind of the retest of the shoulder, the retest of the retest, and now we're getting support. We saw like price head and shoulders broke back down to our 104 500. See, we see 104 500 level here, and if we look back to previous data, what do we have around the same zone? How I found this zone in the first place was just looking at the previous data of the previous uptrend, higher highs, higher lows. At this point where price was kind of having this hesitation where it's like, okay, it's kind of going down, but it's, if you look closely, it's testing this area a lot, right? Boom. I consider all of these test points, right? So in those test points, I just keep those kind of in my mind, in the back of my mind when it comes to my trading. And we see between this 104 500 and 104 674 zone was a very key zone for price, where price came back to, found a demand, and we saw price push back up from this point, right? So just looking at the overarching, sentiment of bearish sentiment, we have a lot of news coming out this week that may potentially push price to be bullish. So we're going to look at both sides of this really quick on the US dollar, and then from that point we'll gauge how everything else will move. So on a bullish sentiment, I kind of have, first off, we have a broadening wedge right here, right? Which is a bullish pattern. So you'll typically see price bounce between these, come down, and then fully bounce up, right? Which makes sense. If CPI comes out very bullish, then we will see this price jump in the US dollar. If the federal funds rate increases, it's kind of a 50-50. If we look at our last rate hike, it did push up after, I think at market had already priced in a 0.75 hike. It still pushed up a little bit after the hike, but then proceeded to fall drastically a little bit. If I am not mistaken, on the November 2nd, rate hike. Don't quote me on that. But just looking at our action here, right? So we're seeing broadening wedge shoulders, kind of keep that in the back of our mind from last week. So we do still have a bullish pattern from last week. We have price finding a support zone, and we also have price kind of sitting in between a support and kind of a resistance, because it's also testing the shoulder area of this previous like little head and shoulders pattern. So within the zone, there's another zone that's kind of having a major confluence in it as well. So I want to see how price plays out on this zone. And we take a look at the hour and look at price action throughout this week so far. Just gonna this didn't used to be like this. I don't like that it's like that. Like, you used to just be able to hide that, and I like that functionality. I don't know why it's gone. So let me get rid of these indicators real quick. All right, got those out of here. One of these days I'll upgrade again, but it's just be so useless sometimes. What was I talking about? All right, so we've seen price kind of affect run up back to this previous resistance around this 105 area, break back down, find support, break back up. We see it initially hit, had a bearish candle, and now it's kind of trying to push back into the zone. Typically on Monday, I like to allow market to run itself, kind of catch up to all the over the weekend sentiment and news and everything like that. So I'm not a heavy Monday trader. So I will definitely keep that in mind. But as far as bullish consent, first of all, I'm really going to be looking for price to hit is going to be these two levels. So around 105,800, which is the previous zone over here. So around this zone here. And then if we do break past this, I'll be looking for a price to hit this 107, around between 106,800 and this 107 area, right? Just taking a further back look, even if we cross this out, right, we can see how that is potentially going to play out, because we see prices yet to create another lower low. Not that it won't, but if we look at price, lower low, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, but we did not create another lower low. So we create a higher low and potentially have the potential to create a higher high, come back, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher. All right. So let's take a look at GU. Love GU here. First, let's take a look at it on the weekly. Let's take all our draws away, right? So we see GU's. You can already tell GU's been in a very strong zone for a very long time. Of course, it's a weekly, so this is a very wide range of price action. But nonetheless, we see the zones, right? Like I said, you know me. I am a whole number quarter point level. So you see, marking up the 1.42, the 138, the 134. That might be 34, 35. Right key zones here. We are clearly able to see we had broke below our main weekly structure. Kind of found support at these other levels. We're not really going to get too detailed into that because we're trying to focus on what we're doing right now, right? So broke below our levels. We found support at some other key levels. Bounced back up, right? So now we're right above our previous 122 weekly support level. Let's just take this a little deeper. On the daily, I have some other zones here that we'll get into right above here. But we see we are also right above this 1.23 zone here, which comes into play just from our previous price action here that we see previously on the way down. Price had created higher low, right? Or not a higher low, lower low, lower high. Price created a lower high here, and we see price really respect this area. So as price is coming back up, we see price is still respecting this area, almost as a double top formation. If we just let's clear some of the noise away. We see price is on the daily. Is price increasing? Yes, but look at the candlesticks in the way that price is increasing. It's not really increasing in a way that shows bullish strength. It is increasing in a way that shows price is kind of losing that bullish momentum behind it. So yes, it's price still increasing, but it's not showing a strong strength in this movement, right? So I'm sure if we pulled up the MACD would be very the MACD would be very probably bearish trending. And I'm just really curious about that. So let's just pull up the MACD. And yeah, like I said, I don't typically use the MACD at all, but it's like one of those things where like you can kind of see how prices start to, lose some of that bullish strength, right? So this is going to be a very key level. I'm looking forward to seeing how price reacts around it. Of course, strong level. We have a lot of bullish sentiment when it comes to the US dollar, as far as things that definitely have a major chance to increase it, also have a major chance to decrease it, right? Neither here nor there. If we reject, we're just going to be looking for a rejection of this 1, 2, 3 back down to this first 122 level, and then the second around 121, and thirdly around about 1.19, a little bit above, maybe do 1.19500 first, and then 1.19. So we see we're not really stressing on that. We take it on a 4 hour, and as far as bullish implications go, we see once again we're just marking up previous price action. boom. So we have a previous high here. We also have a previous area confluence. Sometimes I mark up just an area confluence where I see prices either pause, hesitated, or completely flew through. So we see on this way down, price pause here, went up. On its way down, still came back up, retested, broke above, tested. So we see this area is a heavy tested level, right? So we're just going to continue to look at these heavy tested areas when it comes to bullish. If we do see a break above this 1, 2, 3, we'll be looking for retest of these areas and potentially a jump to our 1, 2, 6 zone. If we don't get a break above this 1, 2, 3, I'm going to be looking for price to retest our lower area zones that we already talked about, potentially come down to 119 by midweek, and then we'll see how things go with FOMC and things like that. And besides that, I think we're going to just stick to the DXY and GU today. It's been a while since I did the video, so we're going to see how, things play out on this Monday. Between these two, which have a very strong connection correlation, of course, since it's traded with the US dollar. So that's the quote pair. So with that being said, that's kind of what I am looking forward to, looking at as this week of trading between December 12th and 16th. So that is what I'm looking forward to. So what pairs are you guys trading? What time frames are you guys using? Definitely leave drop all this information in comments below. What pairs are you guys trading? What are your major time frames? What confluences you have? And kind of where do you see price going? Do you think that CPI data is going to come out bullish, bears, above forecasted, under? Do you think the Fed is kind of on the right track when it comes to taming inflation? What are your thoughts and opinions on some of these things that we talked about? Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And please feel free to leave your comments in the comment section. Thank you, and come again.